It turns out he's only mostly dead. Welcome to Walking Through the Word for today. We're in John chapter 8, and we've been having a conversation, and Jesus makes a statement when he says, they will never see death. Now, this is not a Princess Bride statement, though that was a great movie, and that quote is a great quote. He's only mostly dead. The only thing you can do if he's really dead is to go through his pockets and look for loose change. Jesus is not talking about whether we're going to see physical death or not here. We're all going to face it. We're all going to die. Whether we like it or not, studies have shown that everybody dies. The question is, though, what happens after that death? See, I think most people, when they tell you they're afraid of death, if you're a follower of Christ and you say that you're afraid of death, you're not necessarily afraid of what happens after death. You're afraid of the act of dying. If you're someone who doesn't know Jesus, then you're afraid of death because it leads to unknown. Because you don't really know whether or not you've been a good enough person, or you've earned the karma, or you've earned whatever it is that you think you need to get towards the next thing. Now, we can talk about people that believe there's nothing afterwards, but that really is not a realistic thought process. But what Jesus is talking about here is that when we face death, the question is, do we have the assurance of life after death? Now, that might sound like a contradiction, but that's exactly what Jesus is doing here. He's telling us that if you trust me, if you obey my words and you see my words and you obey them, you hear them and you believe them, you will be saved. You will discover that there is eternal life to be had, and not just any eternal life in paradise with me, perfection, forever. You will not taste death. Now, the Pharisees, they don't like this. They're like, no, now we really know that you're demon-possessed in verse 52. Abraham died. Everybody died. So did the prophets. Everyone does it. So you say whoever obeys your word will never taste death. This doesn't make any sense. And they ask a question, not realizing that Jesus has the answer. They're again on two different planes. Are you greater than our father Abraham? He died, and so did the prophets. Who do you think you are? Jesus says, look, you don't know who you're looking for. Abraham was looking for me. My Father, whom you claim as God, is the one who glorifies me. I'm not doing this for myself. I'm not trying to seek glory for myself, which is kind of what the Pharisees were actually proclaiming. Hey, you think that you're so great. You think you're hot snot, Jesus. You ain't nothing but cold boogers. And Jesus is like, no, I'm not here for myself. I'm here for you. I'm here for the bidding of my Father. Abraham rejoiced at the thought of seeing my day. He saw it and was glad. But the Pharisees must have seen something in his words that made them say this statement in verse 57. You're not even 50 yet. As if 50 was old, I got to tell you. Oh, but you've seen Abraham? What are you talking about? Very truly, Jesus answered, before Abraham was born, I am. Basically, the Pharisees had been playing a very different game from Jesus. They had been playing a game where they assumed that Jesus was just some crazy prophet, akin to John the Baptist, but a little bit different. But eventually he was going to die and fade away just like everybody else. And they challenged Jesus on this. And Jesus challenged them back, saying, I have been here before, and I've been before you. I have been here always. Remember, Jesus said, I didn't come from down here. I came from above. I came from heaven. Very clearly, he wasn't talking about above as in a mountaintop. He was talking about heaven. It's where I come from. I am eternal. I am who I say I am. I am the one whom Abraham was looking for. I am the one who he placed his faith in. And this is why the Pharisees were like, you can't know Abraham. You're not old enough. And God and Jesus become one in the eyes of the Pharisees right here. And they don't like it. Because when Jesus says, before Abraham was born, I am. Now, do you remember where I am? We hear this before. We hear this in the burning bush with Moses. I am. Meaning I have always and always will be. I am perpetual. I am eternal. I am. The Pharisees hear this and they realize that Jesus is not who they thought he was. He's not even claiming to be who they thought he was. He's claiming to be something far greater, something far more spectacular, and frankly, something far more amazing and scary. You see, at this point, the Pharisees again have a choice. They can drop what they're doing and follow Jesus, which would require, really frankly, an incredible amount of faith. Or they can once again double down, because Jesus is challenging everything that they have ever believed. Well, they choose the latter. They grab stones as if to try to kill him. But Jesus hid himself. I don't even know what that means. It could be that he had like an invisibility cloak or something. Whatever it is, Jesus disappeared, slipping away from everything and everyone that they were looking for him. They saw something amazing happen, yet their eyes would not allow them to see it. Their hearts were so hard they could not believe that Jesus actually is who he says he is. There must have been fear in the Pharisees at this point. They must have been truly afraid, because they are now challenging something, and if they're wrong, it's going to cost them everything. So, in some ways, I can understand where the Pharisees come from. They're doubling down because they are afraid. They are doubling down because if Jesus is right, that means that they are not just wrong about some things, they were wrong about everything. This is a hard truth for all of us. To come to a place where we recognize that Jesus is right about everything means that we have to give up the things that we held valuable and things that we held dear. That we have to admit and acknowledge that maybe we were wrong. Maybe we missed the boat on something. Maybe Jesus is who he says he is. So once again, we come to a point of decision, just like the Pharisees. Do we drop what we have? Do we give up our things and follow Jesus? Or do we clinch tighter onto the rocks?